Every species has nightmares, terrors lurking just beyond the star charts, whispered about only in dark corners of interstellar taverns. Among these ghostly legends, Terra Mortis stood supreme, a death world so merciless and savage that the galaxy feared to believe it real. But when a forgotten celestial map surfaced, pinpointing this myth as Earth, in the forbidden Orion Arm, one brutal truth became clear: humanity wasn't a ghost story, it was a goddamn horror show waiting for visitors. Every species had their nightmares, whispered fears passed around campfires and starports alike. But for Elix Quail, nightmares had always seemed distant, until today. Elix stood frozen aboard the diplomatic cruiser Ascendant Dawn, clutching an ancient, tattered star map in trembling hands. The markings glowed dimly, pulsing softly beneath her touch. "It's real," she whispered, eyes wide in disbelief. "Terra Mortis is real." Beside her, Commander Jaran, a towering, hardened Valori warrior, leaned closer, skeptical but visibly unsettled. "Impossible," he growled. "A death world that savage is merely folklore. A scare story to frighten hatchlings." Elix shook her head slowly, her delicate antennae twitching nervously. "I wish that were true, Commander, but the coordinates point clearly to the forbidden Orion Arm. To a planet marked here as Earth." Commander Jaran bristled, turning sharply. "Set course immediately. If there truly is such a threat, we must know." As the cruiser leapt toward Earth, whispers raced through the corridors. Fear, anticipation, dread, the crew tasted every flavor of anxiety. Elix moved quietly among them, sensing their terror as strongly as her own. She paused at an observation port, watching the stars blur into streaks of anxious color. Her colleague, young science officer Xylan, approached nervously. "Elix," he said hesitantly, "do you believe the rumors? Predators who adapt instantly, plagues that melt flesh?" She turned to him, forcing calm into her voice. "Rumors are exaggerated, Xylan. But a true death world, if such a place exists, we must tread carefully." Suddenly the ship lurched violently, jolting them off balance. Alarms screamed through corridors, a frenzy of chaos erupting instantly. "Magnetic interference detected!" shouted a frantic crewman. "Our navigation systems are compromised." Commander Jaren's voice roared above the panic. "Brace for planetary entry! All hands, emergency stations!" Elix gripped a railing desperately as the Ascendant Dawn spun wildly, caught in Earth's invisible grip. The ship burned through the atmosphere, rattling violently as strange energies ripped at its hull. For one sickening moment, gravity vanished, then slammed back with crushing intensity as they crashed into the dense jungle below. The chaos settled into an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant shrieks of alien wildlife. Elix staggered upright, her slender frame trembling, every breath heavy beneath Earth's oppressive gravity. Around her, crewmates groaned painfully. Commander Jaran stood, bleeding slightly from his brow, eyes filled with grim determination. "Assess damage and casualties quickly. We must." A sudden scream pierced the silence outside. Xylan stumbled backward, staring through the cracked viewport. "Something's out there!" Elix peered out, heart hammering, glimpsing only shadows moving swiftly through the dense foliage. Suddenly, the ship shuddered as massive claws scraped along its metal skin. "Weapons!" Commander Jaran barked urgently, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. Elix felt helpless, heart pounding as a massive creature, scaled and lethal, emerged from the foliage, sniffing curiously at the damaged cruiser. They watched, frozen, as the beast circled closer. Before anyone could speak, an explosive crack split the air, a sharp retort, unfamiliar and startling. The creature staggered, roaring defiantly, then retreated swiftly into the shadows, injured and enraged. Another voice, strong, sarcastic, distinctly alien, echoed through the ship's emergency frequencies. "You folks planning to hide in there all day, or you want a proper Earth welcome?" Commander Jaran tensed, antennae rigid with suspicion. "Identify yourself!" The voice chuckled dryly. "Name's Kane Maddox, but out here I go by Grim Jack. And right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and becoming dinner." Elix's mind raced, relief mixing uneasily with fear. "He's human," she whispered, half astonished, half terrified. "One of the inhabitants." Commander Jaren's voice hardened. "Are you responsible for our crash?" Grimjack laughed coldly. "Trust me, pal, if I wanted you dead, you'd already be feeding the wildlife. Now either follow my instructions exactly, or start planning your funerals." Elix quickly grabbed the communicator. "Please, we are diplomatic envoys. We seek no conflict." Grimjack's voice softened slightly. "Diplomatic envoys, huh? Well, you picked one hell of a place to make friends. Listen carefully, I'm coming in. Don't shoot. Trust me, I've got worse outside to worry about than you." Before Jaren could protest, the ship's damaged hatch creaked open, revealing a tall, powerfully built figure silhouetted against the jungle's oppressive green. Grimjack stepped inside slowly, wearing ragged survival gear and carrying an archaic, projectile-based weapon. His gaze swept critically across the alien survivors, his eyes sharp, skeptical. "You're lucky," he said calmly, voice firm and authoritative. "Most things out here hunt first, talk never." Jaren bristled, but Elix intervened swiftly. "We need your help, Grimjack. Our ship is crippled, our supplies limited." Grimjack eyed her carefully, weighing her sincerity. "Lady on Earth, limited supplies are the least of your problems." He turned suddenly, pointing sharply out the damaged viewport. "You think that thing outside was bad? This planet is a symphony of nightmares. If you want to live, you learn fast. And first lesson, trust the scary human." Elix felt fear and hope wrestling within her. She stepped forward decisively. "We'll trust you, Grimjack. Just help us survive until our rescue arrives." Grimjack laughed grimly, shaking his head. "Rescue? Hate to break it to you, but your friends in orbit already assume you're dead or captured. Odds are, they're prepping for invasion, not rescue." Commander Jaren tensed angrily. "You dare accuse the collective?" "I'm accusing nobody," Grimjack interrupted fiercely. "I'm warning you. Earth isn't your enemy, not yet, but misunderstandings here turn deadly real fast. Your people up there fear what they don't understand. Trust me, fear makes folks do ugly things." Elix felt cold dread tighten around her heart, realizing their presence here could trigger disaster. "Then we have to prevent that. We must show the collective Earth's true nature." Grimjack's eyes softened with reluctant admiration. "You got guts, kid, I'll give you that. All right, diplomatic envoy, ready or not, class is in session." Outside, a distant, blood-curdling roar echoed through the jungle. Grimjack smiled grimly, gripping his weapon tighter. "Welcome to Terra Mortis," he growled darkly. "School's officially in." Elix stared cautiously at Grimjack, uncertainty flooding her eyes. "What exactly are you suggesting? We cannot fight our own rescue teams." Grimjack's face tightened with grim determination. "Listen carefully, Elix. Your rescue team isn't here to save anyone. If I'm right, they're here to clean up evidence, and that means leaving none of us breathing." Commander Jaren stepped aggressively between them, his voice harsh with disbelief. "Impossible! Our people uphold the highest ethical standards. You're nothing but a paranoid primitive." Grimjack smiled dangerously, meeting Jaren's gaze unflinchingly. "Primitive, huh? Maybe. But survival's my specialty. You came to our backyard. Now, if you want to see tomorrow, you start listening, or you start dying." A tense silence followed, the aliens glancing nervously between their commanding officer and the imposing human standing confidently before them. Elix finally broke the tension, stepping gently but firmly past Jaren. "Grimjack," she said softly, "please explain clearly. Why would our own leaders betray us?" Grimjack's voice lowered, intense yet clear. "Because your diplomatic cruiser carried something more valuable than your lives. I scanned your wreck. The readings matched known sterilization bioweapons. Someone in your precious collective wants Earth gone, and you're their excuse to start a war." Elix paled visibly, horror evident in her trembling voice. "Sterilization? Impossible! We carry only diplomatic equipment." "Diplomatic?" Grimjack spat harshly, cutting her off. Funny diplomacy, packing enough firepower to wipe out a biosphere. Like it or not, your own people see you as expendable pawns. The question is, are you brave enough to face that truth? Commander Jaren seethed in anger, antennae rigid, hands clenched. This is insanity. Elix, do not trust this savage. He seeks only chaos. Elix hesitated, her fragile form straightening under the immense weight of responsibility. Her eyes met Grimjack's unwavering gaze, seeing something deeper beneath the hardened exterior. Quietly, she answered, He saved us when he didn't have to, Commander. Maybe it's time we listened. Jaren's fury simmered beneath tightly controlled words. Very well. Let us then, primitive. But if you're wrong, you'll be the first casualty. Grimjack grinned defiantly. Fair enough. Now move fast. This jungle has ears and teeth. Grimjack moved decisively, guiding the aliens cautiously away from their wrecked vessel. Elix struggled, Earth's oppressive gravity weighing heavily on her slender frame. Her breasts were labored, each step demanding fierce determination. You're tougher than you look, Grimjack noted, observing Elix closely. Most off-worlders collapse faster than this. Elix met his gaze briefly, warmth flickering through her exhaustion. On Valoria, endurance isn't measured in strength, but in persistence. We learn to survive by adapting, not fighting. Grimjack laughed bitterly, his tone darkly amused. Adaptation's useful? But here, you either fight or become someone else's adaptation. Elix shuddered slightly, glancing nervously into the dense jungle shadows. Is Earth truly so merciless? Merciless? Grimjack paused briefly, eyes intense. Maybe. But Earth respects strength. Show it weakness, it devours you. Respect it, and it'll forge you into something stronger. Elix nodded silently, absorbing his words carefully. Suddenly, an unnatural silence descended over the jungle, a deadly stillness broken only by Grimjack's urgent whisper. Quiet. They're close. Commander Jaren tensed, gripping his weapon instinctively. Your paranoia grows tiresome, human. A sharp crack echoed violently through the air, Jaren stumbling backward as energy singed inches from his head. Grimjack pulled him swiftly behind dense foliage, snarling furiously. Still think I'm paranoid, Commander? That's your rescue team sending a polite hello. A frantic voice crackled through the communicator on Jaren's belt. Survivors, surrender immediately. Resist and face annihilation. Grimjack's grin was feral, eyes blazing defiantly. Guess diplomatic talks are out, huh? Elix's heart pounded frantically, panic clawing her throat. She clutched Grimjack's arm desperately. What do we do now? He locked eyes with her, his expression fiercely protective. Now you learn how Earth fights back. Before she could question further, Grimjack vanished swiftly into the foliage, his movements precise, deadly. Elix waited breathlessly, the jungle erupting suddenly with rapid gunfire, harsh shouts, cries of confusion from the collective soldiers caught unprepared by Grimjack's fierce guerrilla tactics. Elix turned sharply toward Jaren, pleading urgently. Commander, you have to help him. He's fighting to save us. Jaren stared stubbornly ahead, pride warring with grudging respect in his hardened expression. He fights as a predator fights, savage without mercy. Elix stepped forward, voice unwavering. Commander, survival demands courage, not pride. If we don't fight beside him, we abandon everything our people believe. A heavy silence followed, the sounds of battle intensifying nearby. Grimjack's taunting voice echoed mockingly through the jungle. Hey, collective boys, welcome to Earth. Stick around a while, I promise you'll regret it. Jaren closed his eyes briefly, exhaling sharply. Finally, determination replaced stubborn pride as he met Elix's hopeful gaze. Very well. We fight. Together, Elix and the surviving Valori followed cautiously, weapons raised. They moved carefully, guided by Grimjack's battle cries and the chaos ahead. Bursting through dense leaves, Elix froze momentarily, stunned by the brutal efficiency of Grimjack's attacks. He moved effortlessly, a predator within predators, his strength and cunning shocking even the collective commandos. "About time!" Grimjack shouted fiercely, eyes bright with adrenaline as Elix and Jaran joined his side. "Thought you got lost. Just deciding whose side to be on." Jaran shot back sharply, aiming carefully, firing defensively alongside Grimjack. Elix marveled at Grimjack's confidence, inspired despite the chaos around her. For the first time, she felt Earth's relentless strength not as fear but courage, a fierce determination surging through her fragile body. Suddenly, the firefight paused abruptly as a holographic transmission flickered into view, displaying a collective admiral's stern visage. "Cease hostilities. Surrender immediately. Resistance will mean complete planetary sterilization." Elix gasped in horror, looking desperately toward Grimjack. His face remained calm, voice strong and defiant as he addressed the hologram boldly. "Sterilize Earth? That's cute. Tell me something, Admiral. Ever faced a true death world? Ever tried to break a planet that refuses to be broken?" The Admiral sneered coldly. "You are nothing but primitive beasts, humans. You cannot survive our wrath." Grimjack stepped confidently forward, voice dangerously quiet yet powerfully clear. "Primitive, maybe. But Earth forged us in fire, pain, and blood. We know sacrifice. You want Earth? Come down and claim it yourself. But bring your courage. Bring your armies. And when you fall, we'll plant our flag in the ashes." Elix felt pride swell deeply, inspired by Grimjack's fierce defiance. She stepped forward bravely, her voice steady beside his. "And if you wish peace, we will teach you courage. Earth is not your enemy, unless you force it to become one." Silence lingered tensely, the hologram vanishing abruptly, leaving only uncertainty and the promise of war looming dangerously over them. Grimjack turned slowly, meeting Elix's gaze. He smiled grimly, nodding respectfully. "Not bad, diplomat. Looks like Earth's rubbing off on you already." Elix stood silently, her pulse racing wildly as the holographic threat from the Admiral faded, leaving only tense, suffocating silence in its wake. She glanced nervously toward Grimjack, watching carefully as his jaw tightened with barely contained fury. "They mean to destroy your world," she whispered, voice trembling slightly. "Everything you care for, they want it erased." Grimjack's eyes remained locked forward, fierce determination burning dangerously within them. "They can try," he growled darkly, the quiet menace in his voice sending chills through the Valori diplomats gathered anxiously around him. "Earth doesn't bend to threats. It breaks those who make them." Commander Jaran exhaled sharply, antennae twitching anxiously. "Yet they wield unimaginable power, sterilization weapons capable of ending entire worlds. What hope does your primitive resistance offer?" Grimjack turned sharply, his eyes blazing defiantly as he faced the commander head-on. "Primitive?" he repeated quietly, voice edged with cold contempt. "You still don't get it, Commander. Primitives adapt, survive, and fight harder. Your technology breeds complacency. Down here, complacency equals death." Elix stepped cautiously between them, her slender form trembling under Earth's heavy gravity, but her voice clear and steady. "Grimjack, Commander, please, we cannot afford division. If we don't stop them now, misunderstanding will lead to billions of deaths. Humans and Valori both." Grimjack softened slightly, acknowledging her wisdom with grudging respect. "She's right," he admitted sharply, eyes flicking to Jaran. "You want to win? You fight with us, not against." Commander Jaran clenched his fists tightly, pride warring visibly against necessity. Slowly, deliberately, he nodded. "Agreed," he finally said stiffly. "But how do you plan to counteract a weapon capable of planetary annihilation?" Grimjack's lips twisted into a dangerous smile. "Simple," he responded boldly. "We strike first." Elix blinked stunned. "Attack them first? But how?" Grimjack's smile widened darkly. "Your cruiser, crippled but not useless. If we rig its reactor core, send it up on autopilot toward their flagship, we'll force their hand. Either they negotiate, or they burn." Elix paled, shaking her head fearfully. That's too dangerous. What if they retaliate immediately? Grimjack leaned closer, eyes fiercely intense. They will retaliate, Elix. Count on it. But fear is our ally. Fear will force them to hesitate, to rethink their position. The collective wants easy victories. Let's give them nightmares instead. Elix shivered, absorbing his words, feeling strangely strengthened by Grimjack's resolve. Then we do it together, she said softly. Human and Valori side by side. Within moments, the group moved decisively, scrambling toward the wreckage of the Ascendant Dawn. Grimjack's swift confidence guided their actions, directing Jaran and the diplomats with sharp efficiency. Elix worked feverishly alongside Grimjack, ignoring the ache in her muscles, feeling her frail form strengthened by determination and newfound courage. Commander Jaran hesitated momentarily, watching the human carefully. You seem accustomed to desperate odds, Grimjack. Grimjack's hands paused briefly, eyes distant for a single heartbeat. Desperate odds are the only ones worth fighting, he replied quietly. It's how humanity survives. We thrive in chaos, adapt to it, master it. What breaks others only sharpens us. Elix looked up, feeling admiration bloom within her chest. I envy that courage, she whispered softly. Valori have forgotten what it means to risk everything. Grimjack smiled slightly, genuine warmth creeping momentarily into his hard gaze. Stick around, Elix. Earth teaches lessons you'll never forget. Just as they finished rigging the reactor, alarms blared urgently throughout the crippled cruiser. Elix's eyes widened in panic, staring desperately toward Grimjack. They're here! Outside, collective commandos stormed aggressively through the jungle, weapons firing wildly as they advanced toward the Ascendant Dawn. Grimjack cursed sharply, drawing his battered rifle with practiced ease. Jaran, Elix, get that autopilot online. I'll buy you time. Commander Jaran shook his head stubbornly, grabbing a weapon and stepping firmly beside Grimjack. Not alone, human. This fight belongs to both our worlds. Grimjack nodded once, deeply respectful. Then show them your teeth, Commander. Elix rapidly keyed the autopilot sequences, heart pounding violently as gunfire erupted furiously nearby. Her fingers shook, determination battling the terror gripping her tightly. The cruiser hummed softly, systems slowly powering to life. Outside, Grimjack and Jaran fought fiercely, their defense savage yet precisely coordinated, a strange and powerful unity forged between alien and human. Each shot, each move, perfectly aligned, driven by mutual respect and desperation. Commander Jaran shouted fiercely through the chaos. You fight well, Grimjack, for a primitive. Grimjack grinned fiercely, ducking incoming fire effortlessly. Coming from you, Commander, I'll take it as a compliment. Elix felt relief flood her as the autopilot engaged, the Ascendant Dawn vibrating softly beneath her feet. It's ready! She shouted desperately, voice echoing urgently over the chaos. Grimjack turned sharply, eyes bright with fierce triumph. Then let's remind the collective why Earth's legends exist. With a deafening roar, the cruiser rose unsteadily from the jungle floor, barreling upward through Earth's atmosphere toward the orbiting collective fleet. Grimjack watched grimly, breathing heavily, eyes reflecting defiant pride. Elix stood beside him, trembling slightly. Will it be enough? Grimjack's voice remained firm, eyes unblinking. Enough to buy Earth, and your people, a chance to choose differently. Suddenly, a transmission crackled urgently through the communicator, panic clear in the Admiral's voice. Stop this attack immediately! You primitives have no idea what you're unleashing! Grimjack seized the communicator fiercely, eyes blazing dangerously. No, Admiral, it's you who don't understand. We aren't your primitives to crush. We're humanity. Earth doesn't yield, it doesn't break. Threaten us, and you'll find the legends barely scratch the surface of reality. Silence lingered tensely, the Admiral's hesitation palpable through the communicator. Finally, his voice returned, quieter now, filled with uncertainty. We request negotiation. Elix exhaled sharply, overwhelmed by relief. Grimjack's smile widened slowly, dangerously triumphant. Negotiation sounds smart. Welcome to humanity's table. Just remember, if you cross us again, Earth will remind you exactly why it earned its reputation. Elix met Grimjack's gaze, admiration blazing brightly in her gentle eyes. You showed them strength without cruelty, Grimjack. Courage without fear. Grimjack nodded quietly, respect deeply etched in his rugged expression. And you showed me diplomacy isn't weakness, Elix. Maybe humanity has lessons to learn as well. She smiled warmly, standing proudly beside him as silence descended once more over the battlefield, a hard-won peace trembling delicately between two worlds that finally understood one another. Grimjack stood calmly, his piercing gaze locked onto the glowing communicator, awaiting the collective's response. Elix watched silently, her heart pounding violently, feeling the oppressive weight of uncertainty pressing against her fragile frame. Finally, the silence broke as the Admiral's voice crackled reluctantly through the speaker, heavy with cautious defeat. Human! Grimjack! The Admiral began hesitantly, voice tempered by newfound respect. Your courage is unexpected. The collective requests immediate negotiations. We acknowledge the misunderstanding and seek peace. A tense quiet settled momentarily, everyone's eyes locked on Grimjack. He breathed deeply, his voice steady yet powerful. Peace, he echoed thoughtfully. Strange word coming from the ones who planned genocide. The Admiral hesitated, audibly uncomfortable. A misguided faction acted rashly, without authority. We disavow their actions and will handle the traitors swiftly. Commander Jaren's antennae twitched skeptically. Convenient excuse. Grimjack glanced briefly toward Jaren, silently agreeing. Then prove it, Admiral. Disable your fleet's sterilization weapons. Publicly acknowledge Earth's sovereignty. Anything less, and negotiations end. Elix stepped closer, strengthening her voice. Admiral, we've seen firsthand humanity's bravery, strength, and mercy. Do not underestimate Earth again. Honor your word, and we have much to gain, both our worlds. The Admiral sighed heavily. Understood. Prepared to receive proof of our sincerity. Moments later, confirmation signals flickered on Elix's communicator. Relief washed over her face, her voice trembling softly. They disabled their weapons. It's real. Grimjack nodded quietly, his shoulders relaxing slightly for the first time. Then let's finish this. Commander Jaren studied Grimjack carefully, newfound respect evident in his voice. I owe you an apology, human. I misjudged your species as violent and savage. Yet you risked everything, protecting even your enemies. Grimjack smiled faintly. We might seem savage, Commander, but survival forged us differently. On Earth, strength and compassion coexist. You just saw the results. Elix gently placed her slender hand on Grimjack's arm, speaking softly. We came fearing your world as Terra Mortis, a legendary nightmare. Instead, Earth showed us courage beyond imagination. Grimjack turned slowly, his hardened features softening warmly. You proved brave too, Elix. Earth just reminded you who you really were. She smiled gently, eyes glowing with gratitude. Maybe we needed Earth's lessons more than you needed ours. A faint hum signaled an incoming transmission. Another hologram appeared, this time clearly nervous diplomats from the collective. Their representative spoke carefully. We request your presence aboard our flagship, Grimjack. Negotiations must finalize immediately. Grimjack folded his arms calmly, voice edged cautiously. If this is a trick. No tricks, the diplomat assured urgently. We recognize humanity's strength and resolve. You've taught us caution. Allow us this opportunity to earn trust. Grimjack glanced silently toward Elix, reading her hopeful expression carefully. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. But Elix joins me. She's your diplomat, one who showed genuine courage. The diplomat nodded swiftly. Granted. Coordinates sent. Elix exhaled nervously, glancing toward Grimjack. You trust them? Grimjack smiled faintly, his confidence unwavering. I trust us. If they try betrayal, they'll regret learning just how creative humanity gets. The pair stood calmly aboard the small shuttle that took them toward the massive collective flagship. Elix felt her heart pounding anxiously, studying Grimjack carefully. You never expected this, did you? Grimjack shook his head softly, eyes distant. Never imagined representing humanity. Honestly, hiding in the jungle seemed simpler. She laughed softly, voice warm. Yet you embraced it. That makes you extraordinary. He shrugged gently. Maybe. Or maybe it's just a human trait. We're stubborn that way. The shuttle docked quietly, doors opening swiftly. Collective diplomats greeted them respectfully, nervousness clearly visible. Elix straightened bravely, stepping forward confidently, strengthened by Grimjack's presence. Inside, the negotiation chamber buzzed anxiously, collective officials shifting nervously, uncomfortable beneath Grimjack's intense gaze. He spoke first, voice clear and firm. This is simple. Respect Earth, and you'll have no greater ally. Betray us, and no force in the galaxy can shield you. The lead diplomat cleared his throat nervously, glancing toward Elix. We misunderstood Earth's nature, mistook bravery for savagery. We deeply apologize. Elix met their eyes confidently. Diplomacy requires more than apologies. Actions speak louder. The diplomat nodded hastily. Then let our first action be this: Earth's invitation to join the Collective Council, as full equals. Your strength, courage, and resilience are qualities our civilizations need desperately. Grimjack blinked briefly, genuinely surprised. Elix smiled, encouraged. Accepting Earth would send a powerful message. It would redefine strength, not as weapons or cruelty, but as courage, loyalty, and compassion. Grimjack considered quietly, finally nodding firmly. Then humanity accepts, but under one condition. The diplomat nodded eagerly. Name it. Grimjack's voice hardened slightly. Earth isn't terra mortis anymore. Never again spread fearful legends. Tell everyone the truth. Humanity survives because we never give up. Our real power isn't violence. It's our refusal to surrender, our will to protect, our fierce determination. Make that your legend. The diplomat's eyes widened slowly, deeply respectful. Agreed. Earth's true nature deserves to be known. Later, standing once again beneath Earth's vibrant sky, Elix watched Grimjack closely. You changed your world's destiny today. Grimjack sighed deeply, eyes thoughtful. Maybe. But it wasn't just me. You, Jaran, everyone, we faced impossible odds together. She smiled warmly. Still modest, Grimjack? He chuckled softly. Just honest. Humanity isn't one hero, it's billions. Every single person refusing to surrender, fighting bravely, quietly, unseen. Elix nodded gently, eyes filled with admiration. I see now why Earth became so powerful. Grimjack met her gaze deeply, quietly proud. You came expecting terra mortis, found something else entirely. Think your collective will handle the surprise? She smiled brightly, confidence radiating clearly. They'll learn. After all, Earth teaches unforgettable lessons. Grimjack laughed warmly, the sound relaxed and genuine. You know something, Elix? You're starting to sound more human every minute. Elix smiled gently, eyes glowing warmly. Maybe your species' stubbornness is contagious. Together, they stood silently, watching the sky slowly darken, stars beginning to glitter softly. Grimjack's voice came quietly, reflective yet powerful. Whatever happens now, the galaxy knows exactly who humans are, he said softly. They thought Earth was a death world, a myth, a nightmare. Now they'll understand. It's a place of survivors, warriors, diplomats. People who refuse to be broken. Elix nodded deeply, eyes glowing with fierce pride. And today, humanity taught even me something priceless. He raised an eyebrow curiously. What's that? She smiled warmly, standing proudly beside him. That the greatest strength isn't survival alone, it's protecting others, fighting together. It's the courage to change. Grimjack's expression softened warmly. Well said, diplomat. Welcome officially to humanity. Together, beneath the endless stars, two worlds stood united, ready to face whatever challenges waited, armed now with newfound courage, determination, and respect, forever transformed by Earth's lessons.